The massive screens in the Galactic Council chamber flashed red. Emergency alerts blinked across every display, showing the massive solar storm heading straight for the most populated sector of the galaxy. Captain Mike Walker of Earth's Space Fleet stood before the council, his weathered face illuminated by the warning lights. "We need to start evacuating now," he said, his voice steady despite the growing tension in the room. "Our calculations show we have roughly 72 hours before the storm hits the outer colonies." The council chamber erupted in angry mutters. High Counselor Drawn, a tall figure with metallic scales that gleamed under the emergency lights, rose from his seat. His species, the Valorians, had dominated galactic politics for centuries through their warrior culture. "Evacuate." Drawn's voice boomed through the chamber. "You suggest we run away like frightened animals. This is exactly what we have come to expect from humans." He turned to address the other council members. "Always hiding, always running, always choosing the coward's path." Walker took a deep breath. He had expected this response. In the 10 years since humans joined the Galactic Council, they had faced constant criticism for their cautious approach to danger. The warrior races that dominated galactic politics saw human safety protocols as signs of weakness. "The storm will destroy planetary shields," Walker explained, pointing to the data streaming across the screens. "This isn't an enemy we can fight. It's a force of nature that will kill billions if we don't act now." Another counselor, General Crab of the Militant Confederation, laughed harshly. "My people have lived in that sector for 1,000 years. We have weathered storms before. We will stand our ground and prove our worth, unlike you humans who scatter at the first sign of danger." Walker stepped forward, his patience wearing thin. "With all due respect, General, you've never seen a storm like this. Our scientists have analyzed its pattern. It's 3 times stronger than anything recorded in galactic history." He pressed a button on his datapad, and a new simulation appeared. It showed planetary shields failing one by one, entire worlds being bathed in lethal radiation. The council chamber fell silent for a moment. "Earth is willing to deploy our entire civilian fleet," Walker continued. "We can evacuate 80% of the threatened populations if we start now. If we wait." He let the simulation play out, showing the devastating consequences of delay. High Counselor Drawn's scales rattled in anger. "You would have us abandon our colonies, our defensive installations, generations of work and settlement, just because your weak human scientists are afraid of a little solar activity." Walker stood straighter, his voice taking on an edge of steel. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is retreat. We're not suggesting abandoning these worlds forever. We're talking about saving lives so we can return and rebuild." "Brave." Drawn spat the word. "You dare speak of bravery while proposing we run?" "Yes, brave." Walker's eyes met each council member's gaze. "It takes more courage to swallow your pride and do what's necessary than to stand stubbornly and watch your people die. Earth learned this lesson the hard way, through countless disasters. We're offering you a chance to learn from our experience instead of our mistakes." The chamber erupted in angry shouts and accusations. Walker stood firm as insults flew around him. He had expected this reaction, had prepared for it. That's what humans did. They prepared. A quiet voice cut through the chaos. "And if we refuse your help?" It was Ambassador Lin of the Trade Worlds, one of the few council members who had worked closely with humans. "Then we'll respect your decision," Walker replied. "But Earth's ships will be ready. When the storm hits and your shields fail, when you realize the true scale of what's coming, we'll be there. Because that's what humans do. We plan for the worst while hoping for the best." He looked up at the screens one last time, at the massive storm rolling toward populated space. "You call us cowards because we choose to live and help others live. But ask yourselves this: what's more important, your pride or your people's lives?" With that, Walker turned and left the chamber. Behind him, the council burst into arguments, but he didn't look back. He had preparations to make. Because whether the council accepted it or not, The storm was coming, and Earth's ships would be ready. When the time came, they would save as many as they could, not because they were cowards, but because they were human. Commander Anna Reed stood on the bridge of the civilian transport ship, Hope's Journey, watching as hundreds of vessels jumped into formation around her. The largest civilian fleet in human history filled the space around Earth's orbital stations. Cargo ships, passenger liners, and converted mining vessels. Every spacecraft that could carry people had been called into service. Fleet check-in complete. First Officer Tom Hayes reported from his station. 2,317 ships ready for emergency evacuation duty. Anna nodded, her expression grim. How many of them have proper radiation shielding? Less than half, Tom replied. But engineering has rigged temporary shielding on the others. It won't last long, but it should hold for quick rescue runs. The bridge crew worked quietly, checking systems and reviewing evacuation protocols. They all knew the risks. The solar storm approaching the galactic core worlds would be deadly, but they had volunteered anyway. That's what humans did. A message flashed on the main screen. Captain Walker's face appeared, looking tired but determined. Commander Reed, the Council still refuses official evacuation orders, but we've received distress calls from 3 outer colonies. Their scientists have confirmed our predictions about the storm's strength. We're ready, sir, Anna replied. Which colony should we hit first? The mining world of Kraz Prime. They have 2 million people and aging shield generators. Local authorities are still against evacuation, but their civilian population is asking for help. Anna brought up the colony's data on her screen. Like most warrior race settlements, Kraz Prime had minimal safety protocols and escape plans. They considered such precautions a sign of weakness. All ships, prepare for jump, she ordered. Formation Delta 7. We're going to save those people, whether their leaders like it or not. The fleet jumped through hyperspace, emerging near Kraz Prime, just as the first waves of the storm were becoming visible. The colony's sky shimmered with unusual colors as radiation began interacting with the upper atmosphere. Multiple incoming transmissions, Tom reported. The colony's military wants us to leave, but we're getting thousands of civilian requests for evacuation. Anna opened a channel to the colony's government. This is Commander Reed of the Earth Fleet. We're here to help. Your shields won't hold against what's coming. Let us save your people. We do not need help from cowards. The colony leader's voice boomed through the speakers. Our warriors will stand their ground. Sir, Anna kept her voice steady. Being brave doesn't mean you have to die needlessly. Look at your instruments. Look at those radiation readings. They're already twice what your shields were designed to handle. As if to emphasize her point, a visible crack appeared in the colony's shield, spreading like a spider web across the sky. Warning alarms blared through the open channel. Shield failure in multiple sectors. Someone shouted in the background of the colony's transmission. Send the evacuation shuttles, Anna ordered her fleet. Focus on the areas where the shields are weakest first. Priority to children and medical facilities. The human ships moved with practiced precision, each crew knowing exactly what to do. They had drilled for this, prepared for this, because humans understood that true courage meant being ready for the worst. The colony's military ships moved to intercept them, but stopped short as another shield segment failed. Through the gaps, the first deadly rays of the storm struck the surface. Buildings began to glow with dangerous levels of radiation. Primary shield generator failing. The panic in the colony leader's voice had replaced the previous arrogance. We need assistance. That's what we're here for, Anna replied, already directing her ships toward the failing sections. This isn't about pride or courage. This is about survival. Let us help you. Finally, the resistance crumbled. Evacuation orders spread across the colony. Human ships descended through the failing shields, their crews working fast to load as many people as possible. Commander, Tom called out, we're getting similar distress calls from 2 other colonies in the sector. Their shields are starting to fail too. Anna looked at the tactical display. calculating times and distances. They could reach the other colonies, but it would be close. Very close. The storm was building faster than predicted. "Tell all ships to prepare for multiple rescue runs," she ordered. "And signal Earth. We're going to need every ship they can send. The storm is just getting started." The fleet moved with purpose, racing against time. They had been called cowards for preparing for this day, for having evacuation plans and rescue protocols. But now, as the storm bore down on the galaxy's proudest warriors, it was those cowardly preparations that would make the difference between life and death. The radiation alarms wouldn't stop screaming. First Officer Tom Hayes wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the readings on his console aboard the Hope's journey. The numbers were getting worse by the minute. Shields at 30%. He called out to Commander Reed. "We can't take another run through that storm." "We have to," Anna replied, her eyes fixed on the viewport where the colony of Kraz Prime glowed an unnatural purple under the storm's assault. "There are still 12,000 people down there." The past 8 hours had been a nightmare of continuous evacuation runs. Human ships darted through the intensifying storm like insects in a hurricane, each trip more dangerous than the last. They had already filled every cargo hold, every corridor, and every spare room with refugees. "Commander," the ship's doctor appeared on the bridge screen, her face grim. "We've got radiation sickness showing up in crews from the last 3 rescue runs. If we keep going." "Understood." Anna's voice was tight. She opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. "All ships with radiation damage, fall back to the safe zone. Fresh ships to the front." But there weren't many fresh ships left. The storm had already claimed dozens of vessels, not through destruction, but by radiation damage that forced them to retreat. The human fleet had expected this, had planned for it. But the scale of the disaster was overwhelming even their careful preparations. A new alert flashed across the main screen. Tom's face went pale as he read it. "Commander, the capital city's main shield generator just failed." Anna was already moving. "Get me a line to the governor's palace. Now." The screen lit up with the face of Governor Kraz, the proud warrior who had initially refused their help. His metallic scales had lost their shine, and fear had replaced his previous arrogance. "The backup generators aren't responding," he reported, his voice shaking. "We have 3 million people in the capital zone. Our own ships, they weren't designed for evacuation. We need—" "We're coming," Anna cut him off. "But I need you to do exactly what we say. No more pride. No more resistance. The storm's radiation will reach lethal levels in that zone within 2 hours." Tom spoke up from his station. "Commander, I think I have a solution." He sent data to her screen. "The cargo ships we emptied in the first wave, we can refit them as radiation shelters. Their hulls are already heavily shielded for dangerous cargo. If we land them in the city center—" "Do it," Anna ordered. She turned back to the governor. "Get your people moving toward the city center. We're bringing in emergency shelters. And Governor, move fast. The storm isn't going to wait." The next hour was organized chaos. Human ships descended through gaps in the failing shields, landing wherever there was space. Crews worked at dangerous speeds, converting cargo holds into makeshift shelters, while exposure alarms beeped constantly on their radiation meters. Tom coordinated from the Hope's journey, directing ships and monitoring radiation levels. His console showed a steady stream of red warnings as more colonial shields failed across the sector. "Commander," he called out, "we're getting similar reports from 6 other colonies now. Their shields are starting to crack." Anna stared at the tactical display, where red dots representing shield failures were spreading like a disease across the sector map. The storm was worse than their worst predictions, and it was still building. "How many ships do we have left at full capacity?" she asked. "Less than a quarter of the fleet," Tom replied. "The others have either retreated with radiation damage or are packed with refugees." A massive flash lit up the viewport as another section of the colony's shields collapsed completely. Emergency sirens echoed across the entire city below. "We're out of time," Anna announced. She opened a channel to all ships. "This is Commander Reed. All ships at radiation tolerance begin immediate evacuation. Everyone else, fall back to safe distance. We're going to lose this colony, but we're not going to lose these people." As the human fleet moved into action, a message came in from Captain Walker back at the council. Other colonies were finally asking for help, their pride crumbling in the face of the storm's fury. But as Tom looked at their remaining ships and the growing number of distress calls, he wondered if they had enough left to save them all. The cowardly humans had prepared for disaster, but even they hadn't imagined it would be this bad. Now, as the storm raged and shields failed across the sector, their reputation for caution had become the only thing standing between millions of lives and certain death. Major shield collapse on New Valorian. They've lost all power to their main generator. The report cut through the chaos on the bridge of Hope's Journey like a knife. Commander Anna Reed's head snapped up from her tactical display. New Valorian was the largest colony in the sector, home to over 10 million people. "How long until total shield failure?" she demanded. Tom Hayes' fingers flew across his console. 20 minutes, maybe less. Their backup systems are already overloading. The situation had gone from bad to impossible. Half the human rescue fleet was already packed with refugees from other colonies. The remaining ships were running on damaged shields and exhausted crews. Now the sector's biggest population center was about to be exposed to the full fury of the solar storm. "Get me Captain Walker," Anna ordered. "We need every ship in the galaxy here. Now." The captain's face appeared on screen, looking as tired as they all felt. "I saw the readings. The Council has finally declared a sector-wide emergency. Every available ship is heading your way. But the nearest help is 4 hours out." "New Valorian doesn't have 4 hours," Anna replied. She looked at the tactical display again, making a decision that went against every safety protocol in the book. "We're going to have to try something desperate." She opened a channel to the remaining fleet. "All ships, this is Commander Reed. We're about to attempt a mass shield boost to New Valorian. Every ship with functioning shields will land on the surface and link their shield systems to the colony's grid." Tom's eyes widened. "Commander, that's never been tested at this scale. The power feedback alone could fry every ship's systems. Better than watching 10 million people die." Anna's voice was firm. "Plot landing coordinates for maximum coverage. Priority to residential zones." The human fleet descended through New Valorian's failing shields like a swarm of metal angels. Ships landed in streets, parks, and plazas, their crews working frantically to connect their shield systems to the colony's power grid. "Shield link established," Tom reported. "Colony shield strength up to 40%. 45. 50. A massive tremor shook the entire colony. Warning lights flashed across every console as the storm intensified. "The storm just spiked," someone shouted. "Radiation levels are off the charts." Anna grabbed her command rail as the ship shuddered. "How many people are still exposed?" "At least 6 million, Tom replied. "The residential towers in sectors 3 through 7 have no protection. Their internal shelters won't stand up to these radiation levels." Anna made another impossible decision. "Open all airlocks and internal doors. Strip out all non-essential systems. We're going to pack them in." "That's against every safety regulation," Tom started. "Safety regulations don't matter if people are dead." Anna cut him off. "Send the order to all ships. Pack them in anywhere you can fit them. Corridors, engine rooms, everywhere." The evacuation became chaos incarnate. Human crews guided endless streams of panicked colonists into their ships, packing them into spaces designed for a quarter of the numbers. Engineering crews ripped out equipment to make more room, while medical teams prepared for the inevitable radiation casualties. "Commander," Tom's voice cracked with urgency. 3 more shield generators just failed. The whole grid is going down. The colony's remaining shields flickered like a dying light bulb. Through the viewport, Anna could see the storm's deadly radiation beginning to penetrate, creating ethereal purple patterns in the sky. She hit the fleet-wide channel. All ships, emergency liftoff. Get as many people aboard as you can and get out. We have less than 5 minutes. The human fleet rose from the surface like a flock of overloaded birds, their engines straining against loads far beyond their design limits. Ships packed with refugees lifted slowly, their shields flickering as they tried to protect twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 times their normal passenger capacity. As they climbed through the failing shield barrier, Anna watched the colony's surface begin to glow with lethal radiation. They hadn't saved everyone. They couldn't. But they'd saved millions who would have died if humans hadn't ignored the rules, ignored the protocols, ignored everything except the need to protect life. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, Tom reported quietly. Anna looked at her bridge crew, seeing the exhaustion and determination on every face. Tell them we're a little busy being cowards right now. The brave warriors can wait. Captain Mike Walker stared at the damage reports flooding his screen aboard the command ship Earth's Shield. The human rescue fleet was falling apart. Ships designed to carry hundreds now held thousands. Radiation damage had weakened hull plating across the fleet. Engine cores were burning out from multiple emergency jumps. But the storm wasn't done yet. New distress signal, his communications officer reported. Mining outpost on the edge of the storm. 200,000 people, no evacuation ships, and their shields are nearly gone. Walker looked at the fleet status display. Most ships were dangerously overloaded with refugees. The few that could still move were barely holding together. They had already pushed past every safety limit in the manual. Sir, First Officer Tom Hayes' voice came through from Hope's Journey. We've got 5 ships that might make it, but the radiation levels. He paused. It would be a one-way trip. Walker closed his eyes for a moment. They had known it might come to this. Put out the call. Volunteers only. Within minutes, 30 crews had volunteered. Walker chose the 5 ships in best condition, if best could even apply anymore. The Hope's Journey would lead them, with Commander Reed insisting on staying with her ship. All right, listen up, Walker addressed the volunteer crews. Your shields are at critical. Your hulls are compromised. This rescue attempt goes against every safety protocol we have. But there are 200,000 people about to die if we don't try. He looked at their faces on the screen. Human faces, tired but determined. I won't order anyone to go. This is completely voluntary. Sir, Anna Reed spoke for all of them. We've been ignoring safety protocols all day. Why stop now? A weak laugh went through the crews. They knew the odds. They went anyway. The 5 ships jumped into hell. The storm had grown so intense that it interfered with communications. Walker could only watch through long-range sensors as the small rescue group approached the mining outpost. Their shields are breaching. Someone called out. The mining outpost. They're losing containment. On the outpost, panic had set in. The population had crowded into the deepest mines, trying to use solid rock as shelter against the radiation. But even that wouldn't protect them for long. The rescue ships landed in the main colony square, their hulls glowing from radiation exposure. Commander Reed coordinated the evacuation from Hope's Journey, directing the flow of refugees, while her ship's hull slowly deteriorated around her. Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, her engineer reported. We're losing structural integrity. Seal off the damaged sections, Anna ordered. Keep loading. We're not leaving anyone behind. The evacuation became a race against time. As each ship filled beyond capacity, its hull grew weaker. Warning systems screamed constantly as radiation levels rose. The crews kept working, even as their own radiation exposure reached dangerous levels. Last group coming aboard now, Tom reported from his station. His instruments were failing, but he could still see the crowd of refugees pushing through the airlock. All ships, prepare for emergency jump, Anna commanded. Her voice was hoarse from radiation exposure. Plot course 4. A massive solar flare cut her off. The storm had reached its peak. Jump drives failing. A cry came from multiple ships. The radiation had finally overcome their systems. In that moment, Tom Hayes made one final desperate move. All ships, link your remaining power to Hope's journey. We'll carry you out. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It violated every rule of space travel. But they did it anyway. 5 dying ships linked their power systems together like a string of wounded birds. Their combined energy fed into Hope's journey's jump drive. Warning alerts filled every bridge as systems redlined. Jump drive at critical. Tom shouted. It's going to burn out. Then let it burn. Anna replied. Jump. Now. The combined ships vanished in a flash of energy just as the solar flare struck the outpost. When they reappeared at the safe zone, every system was fried. The ships were dead in space, their hulls barely holding together. But they had done it. They had saved everyone. As rescue ships approached to tow them to safety, Captain Walker sent one final message to the crews. Take pride, cowards. You just showed the galaxy what real courage looks like. 3 days after the storm passed, the Galactic Council chamber was unusually quiet. The massive screens that normally showed star maps and trade routes now displayed casualty figures and damage reports. The numbers told a clear story. Colonies that had accepted immediate evacuation, 98% survival rate. Colonies that had waited until shields failed, 45% survival rate. Colonies that had refused evacuation entirely, 12% survival rate. Captain Mike Walker stood before the council again, but this time no one called him a coward. His dress uniform couldn't hide the bandages from radiation burns, and medical sensors blinked quietly on his wrist. Like many of the rescue crews, he would be dealing with the effects of radiation exposure for months to come. The final count, he said quietly, is 37 million people evacuated. We lost 78 human ships, mostly from radiation damage. 312 human crew members are being treated for severe radiation exposure. He paused. But we didn't lose a single rescue ship with refugees aboard. Not one. High Counselor Drawn, his metallic scales now dulled with stress, leaned forward. How? How did you save so many when our own warrior ships couldn't even approach the storm? Because we planned for failure, Walker explained. Every human ship had backup systems for their backup systems. Every crew member knew exactly what to do if things went wrong. We didn't just plan for things going right. We planned for everything going wrong. The council chamber's doors opened, and Commander Anna Reed entered slowly, supported by First Officer Tom Hayes. Both still showed signs of radiation sickness, but they had insisted on attending. Commander Reed, one of the council members, spoke. Your actions at New Valorian. Our analysts say your rescue method should have been impossible. Linking ship shields that way, combining jump drives, it violated every known safety protocol. Yes, Anna's voice was still hoarse, but strong. Because protocols exist to prevent disasters, not to prevent rescue when disaster strikes anyway. We broke the rules because saving lives was more important than following them. Tom stepped forward, holding up a data pad. We analyzed everything that worked and everything that didn't. We're proposing a new emergency response system for the entire galaxy. We're calling it the Walker Protocol. The name made Walker look up in surprise. Tom continued. It includes evacuation plans for every colony, shield sharing procedures, emergency shelter conversions, everything we learned, everything we improvised. So next time, everyone will be ready. Next time, another council member asked. You already planned for another such disaster. We always plan for next time, Walker said firmly. That's why we survived this time. Being called cowards never stopped us from preparing for the worst, and it never will. High Counselor Drawn stood slowly. The chamber fell silent. 3 days ago, He said, "I watched human ships burn their engines out saving my people. I watched human crews take radiation poisoning to rescue strangers. I watched your cowardly preparation save millions who would have died for their pride." He bowed his head. "We were wrong about humans. All this time, we were wrong." "No," Walker replied softly. "You were just looking at it backwards. We don't prepare because we're afraid. We prepare because we care. Fear isn't about what might happen to us. It's about what might happen to others if we're not ready to help." Anna stepped forward, even though it clearly hurt to move. The bravest soldier in battle isn't the one who doesn't feel fear. It's the one who feels fear and acts anyway. Humanity has learned it the hard way, through countless disasters. We're offering to help you learn it the easy way. The council chamber was quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Not the silence of shame or defeat, but of understanding, of change. "The Walker Protocol," High Counselor Drawn said finally. "Make it law. For all worlds, all colonies." He looked at the humans standing before him. "Teach us how to be cowards like you." Walker looked at his fellow humans, at the radiation burns, the tired eyes, the proud stands despite their injuries. They had been called cowards for preparing, mocked for being careful, dismissed for thinking ahead. But they had saved millions. And now, finally, the galaxy understood. Sometimes the greatest courage is being willing to learn from those you once looked down upon. 1 year after the Great Storm, the colony of New Valorian looked very different. The once proud warrior architecture now stood alongside new Earth-style emergency shelters and evacuation centers. In the main square, a monument had been erected, not to warriors or battles, but to preparation and foresight. Captain Mike Walker stood before a class of mixed species at the newly established Galactic Safety Academy. Humans taught alongside former warrior race instructors, sharing centuries of hard-won knowledge about disaster prevention and crisis response. "The Walker Protocol isn't just about having escape plans," he explained to the eager students. "It's about changing how we think about courage. True bravery isn't about standing your ground when running would save lives. It's about doing whatever needs to be done to protect others." In orbit above, Commander Anna Reed and First Officer Tom Hayes supervised evacuation drills aboard the Hope's Journey. The ship had been rebuilt, stronger than before, its design now copied across the galaxy. Every new ship incorporated the lessons learned during the storm. "Timer check," Anna asked, watching as mixed crews of humans and former warrior races moved through emergency procedures. 3 minutes faster than last month," Tom replied with a smile. "They're learning." The crews working below them were no longer separated by old prejudices. Humans worked alongside Valorians, their different approaches combining into something new and better. What one side saw as caution, the other saw as strength. Together, they had found balance. In the Galactic Council chamber, the changes were even more dramatic. The old warrior symbols had been joined by new ones, icons of preparation, protection, and practical courage. High Counselor Drawn, once the loudest critic of human cowardice, now served as head of the Emergency Response Committee. Monthly disaster drill reports. He announced to the council, his metallic scales gleaming with pride. Every colony now maintains 6 months of emergency supplies. Evacuation protocols are tested weekly. The Walker Protocol has been implemented at 97% of colonial outposts. The council members nodded in approval. The same leaders who had once mocked human caution now competed to show their readiness. Being prepared had become a source of pride. Back at the academy, Walker finished his lecture with the story that had changed the galaxy's understanding of courage. 1 year ago, he told his students, we faced a choice between looking brave and saving lives. We chose lives. We always will. And now the galaxy understands. There's nothing cowardly about caring enough to prepare. After class, he met with Anna and Tom in the Academy's observation dome. Through the reinforced windows, they could still see the faint traces of the storm's damage in the distant nebula, a reminder of what they had faced. The new emergency response fleet launches next month, Anna reported. Every ship built with double redundancy systems, just like we always did. And every crew trained in both warrior discipline and human caution. And the survival rates? Walker asked. Tom brought up the statistics on his pad. Since implementing the Walker Protocol, colonial survival rates for major incidents have increased by 300%. Turns out being called cowards was worth it. They watched as training ships performed rescue drills in the space above them. Each ship carried mixed crews, former warriors learning to plan ahead, humans learning to adapt warrior discipline to their cautious approach. Together, they had created something entirely new. You know what the best part is, Anna said softly. The children in the colonies don't even question it anymore. To them, being brave has always meant being prepared. Being strong has always meant being ready to help. Walker nodded, watching the next generation of galactic protectors train above them. The old divisions between warrior and coward, between pride and preparation, were fading. In their place was a new understanding. True courage meant having the wisdom to plan ahead, the humility to learn from others, and the strength to do what was right, no matter what anyone called you. We taught them how to be cowards, Walker said with a smile, remembering Drawn's words from a year ago. And in doing so, we showed them what real courage looks like. The galaxy had learned its lesson, not through battle or conquest, but through the simple, steady courage of those who cared enough to prepare, to help, and to protect. The humans had been called cowards, but their legacy would be teaching the galaxy a better way to be brave.